Hello, my dear. Thank you for coming to sit with me for a little while. Sometimes life takes you down a path you never, ever expected to walk. You think you know how the story ends. You've done all the right things, loved with your whole heart, and you believe that love is a shelter that will never fall down. But then, one day, you find yourself sitting in a room that isn't yours, in a building with a name like the Golden Sunset Retirement Villa, looking out a window at a garden you didn't plant, and you realize your story took a sharp turn. This chair I'm sitting in, it's mine. This little Afghan over my knees, I knitted it. But this room, this view, this chapter of my life, it was never part of the plan. It's a chapter that began when my own daughter, my Sarah, the little girl I used to rock to sleep singing "You Are My Sunshine," looked me in the eye and told me I had to leave my own home. She didn't just push me out of the house, she pushed me out of her life, out of my grandchildren's lives, and into a future I feared more than anything. She sent me here. If you have a heart, if you have a family, if you've ever loved someone so much it hurt, then you might understand this story. It's a story about betrayal, yes, but more than that, it's a story about how a soul can get lost and how sometimes you have to be completely broken to find the pieces of yourself you forgot were ever there. So please, make yourself a cup of tea and listen, because this is my truth. My name is Eleanor. I'm 74 years old. For most of my life, I was a wife, a mother, a grandmother. That was my entire world, and it was a world I cherished. My husband, Arthur, was a good man, solid as an oak tree. He worked as a foreman at the local plant for 40 years. He didn't make a fortune, but he made a life for us, a good life. We had a sweet little bungalow with a porch swing, and we raised our daughter Sarah there. We were happy. When Arthur passed, quite suddenly from a heart attack, a part of me went with him. The world lost its color for a long, long time. But he had been smart, prudent. He had a life insurance policy. It wasn't a king's ransom, but it was enough to pay off the remainder of the mortgage on our little bungalow and leave me with a small cushion. He wanted to make sure I was safe. That was Arthur, always thinking of us. A few years after he was gone, tragedy struck our family again. My son-in-law, David, a wonderful, kind man, was killed in a car accident. It was devastating. It shattered my Sarah. She was left a widow at 35 with two beautiful children, Lily, who was 8, and little Ben, who was just 5. Of course, I moved in with them immediately. Their house was bigger, and it made sense. My little bungalow, I sold it. I took the money from the sale, and I added to it every single penny of Arthur's life insurance money. It was a substantial sum. I sat at Sarah's kitchen table, the one David had built with his own hands, and I pushed the bank draft across the table to her. "This is for you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "This pays off this house completely. You will own it free and clear. No more mortgage payments hanging over your head." Sarah cried. She threw her arms around me. "Oh, Mom, I can't accept this. This is Dad's money. This is your security." I held her tight. "You are my security," I whispered into her hair, which still smelled of the same strawberry shampoo she used as a girl. "This house, this family is my security. We are a team. This is our forever home. All of us, together. That is the condition." It was an unspoken agreement, sealed with tears and love. This was my investment in our family's future, my forever home. And so my new life began. I threw myself into being the rock for my daughter and my grandchildren, while Sarah, God love her, poured her grief into rebuilding her career in nursing. I became the anchor of the household. I was there when Lily and Ben got home from school. The smell of chocolate chip cookies became the smell of home. I helped with homework, I mended scraped knees, I read bedtime stories in silly voices. I became the official keeper of the garden, planting tomatoes and roses, just like Arthur and I used to do. I did the grocery shopping, I cooked the meals, I cleaned the house. It was my purpose. It was my joy. I remember one evening, Ben, who must have been about 7, was working on a school project about family trees. He was coloring in the leaves, his little tongue stuck out in concentration. He looked up at me and said, "Nana, you're the roots. You're under the ground where we can't see you, but you're holding our whole tree up." Out of the mouths of babes, I was the roots, and I was so proud to be those roots. For 10 years, that was my life. I watched Sarah slowly come back to life. I watched Lily blossom into a bright, sometimes moody teenager. I watched Ben grow from a toddler into a lanky boy who loved baseball. I felt useful. I felt needed. I felt loved. I truly believed we were an unshakable team. The first crack in my perfect world appeared about 2 years ago. Her name wasn't a crack, of course. His name was Mark. Sarah met him at a hospital fundraiser. He was a successful commercial real estate developer, charismatic, wealthy, and polished. Everything David was not. David was quiet, humble, a man who worked with his hands. Mark worked with contracts and presentations. He wore sharp suits and drove a car that looked like a silver spaceship. At first, I was happy for Sarah. She was smiling again, really smiling in a way I hadn't seen since David died. She started dressing differently, wearing more makeup, going out for fancy dinners. I was glad. She deserved happiness. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the atmosphere in our home began to change. It started with little comments. "Mom, do you have to make pot roast again? Mark is more of a filet mignon guy." Or, "Mom, that antique sideboard is looking a little shabby, don't you think? Mark says minimalist is in." My ways, the ways that had built this home, were suddenly old-fashioned. My presence, which had once been the comforting center of the household, began to feel like an inconvenience. I'd be sitting in the living room, knitting, when Mark would come over. He'd give me a tight smile. "Oh, hello, Eleanor. Still here?" He'd then steer Sarah into the kitchen, and their conversations would be hushed. I started feeling like a ghost in my own home, tiptoeing around so as not to disrupt their new, shiny life. One evening, I was in the garden, picking some herbs for dinner. The kitchen window was open. I couldn't help but overhear them talking. Mark's voice was low, but clear as crystal. "Sarah, this neighborhood is booming. This house on this lot? It's a gold mine. But it's a family home. It's not us. We could sell it, take the equity, and get a stunning penthouse downtown. A fresh start. Just you, me, and the kids. No baggage." I froze, my hand clutching a sprig of rosemary. Baggage. The word hung in the warm evening air, toxic and heavy. Was that what I was? Baggage? Then I heard Sarah's voice, hesitant. "Mark, this is her home too. She paid for it. And the kids, They need her. The kids are growing up, Mark countered, his voice smooth as silk. They don't need a live-in nanny anymore. And she paid off the old mortgage. That was a gift, wasn't it? That doesn't mean she gets to live with us forever, stifling our future. Sarah, be realistic. She's holding us back from the life we deserve. Holding us back, stifling our future, the life we deserve. Each phrase was a tiny pinprick to my heart. I stood there in the twilight, the scent of rosemary and earth all around me, and I felt the ground beneath my feet, the ground I thought was so solid, begin to tremble. I told myself I was being silly, paranoid. Mark was just ambitious. Sarah would never. But the distance between Sarah and me grew. Our conversations became polite, superficial. She was pulling away, being drawn into Mark's orbit. I was being left behind. The climax came on a perfectly ordinary Sunday afternoon. I had just finished a video call with my sister, who lives in Florida. I was feeling cheerful. Sarah asked me to sit down in the living room. She had something to talk to me about. She looked nervous, wringing her hands. "Mom," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I've been so worried about you. I spoke to Dr. Evans, about your arthritis. I have a little arthritis in my right knee. It's a nuisance, nothing more. I take a pill for it. I still work in my garden every day." "He agreed with me," she continued, not meeting my eyes, "that you need more professional care, that living in a multi-story house isn't safe for you, that I am not equipped to give you the support you need." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about, Sarah? My arthritis is fine. I'm fine." "There's a place," she pressed on, as if she hadn't heard me. She was reciting a script. "It's called the Golden Sunset Retirement Villa. It's beautiful, Mom. They have activities, a nurse on staff, lovely meals prepared for you. You wouldn't have to lift a finger." I stared at her, my mind reeling. The Golden Sunset? Sarah, that's an old age home. I don't need an old age home. This is my home. "It's an assisted living community," she corrected, her voice gaining a steely edge. "And it's for the best, for everyone. This is a difficult decision, but it's necessary. For your own good." "My own good?" I whispered, the tears starting to come. "Sarah, look at me. I'm your mother. I raised you in this house. I helped you raise your children in this house. I paid for this house." Her face hardened. It was a face I didn't recognize. "We gifted us that money, Mother. A gift doesn't come with strings attached. We've already made the arrangements. It's done." She stood up. "I've packed your things for you. We'll take you there tomorrow morning." I was numb. I felt like I was having a heart attack. This couldn't be happening. I walked like a sleepwalker to my bedroom. My beautiful bedroom, with the view of the garden. The room was different, bare. My antique dresser, the one that had been my mother's, was gone. My favorite reading lamp was gone. My books. "Where are my things?" I asked, my voice a hollow echo. "I sold what wouldn't fit," Sarah said from the doorway, her voice cold and final. "It was just collecting dust. You won't have room for it at Golden Sunset." She had sold my history. She had packed my future into 2 suitcases that sat forlornly at the foot of my stripped bed. In that moment, the mother I knew, the daughter I had raised, was gone. She had been replaced by this stranger, this woman who saw me as an obstacle to be removed. The drive to the Golden Sunset retirement villa was the longest, quietest drive of my life. Sarah didn't speak. I stared out the window, watching the familiar streets of my neighborhood, the park where I pushed the lily on the swings, the library where I took Ben for story hour, all blur past and disappear. The Golden Sunset was beige. Everything was beige. The walls, the carpet, the furniture. It smelled faintly of disinfectant and boiled vegetables. It was clean, it was quiet, but it was devoid of soul. My room was a small, square box with a narrow bed, a small desk, and a closet. It felt like a cell. Sarah helped me carry my suitcases in. She wouldn't look me in the eye. "I'll call you soon, Mom," she mumbled, and then she turned and walked away. I heard her heels click down the hall, the sound fading until there was nothing but silence. I sat on the edge of the hard bed and wept. I wept for Arthur, for David, for my lost home, for my stolen grandchildren. I wept for the daughter I had lost. I felt a loneliness so profound, so absolute, that I thought it would swallow me whole. I was just discarded, like yesterday's newspaper. For the first 2 weeks, I barely left my room. I'd go to the communal dining hall, push food around my plate, and retreat back to my beige cave. I felt myself shrinking, withering. This, I thought, is how it ends. Not with a bang, but with a whisper. In a beige room. But then, something shifted inside me. It was a small, stubborn spark. The same spark that had gotten me through Arthur's death. The same spark that had made me pull myself together for Sarah and the kids all those years ago. I looked at myself in the small mirror in my room. My eyes were red-rimmed and tired. My hair was a mess. "No, Eleanor," I said to my reflection. "Arthur did not leave you his life insurance to end like this. You are not baggage. You are not a ghost." The revenge I sought wasn't against Sarah. It was a revenge against despair itself. It was a quiet, stubborn rebellion. I went to the manager's office. "My name is Eleanor," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "I'd like to start a gardening club." He looked surprised, but agreed. The following Tuesday, I stood in the common room and announced the first meeting of the Golden Sunset Gardeners. 3 people showed up. A man named Walter, who used to be a carpenter, a sweet woman named Rose, who had severe dementia but loved the feel of soil, and a feisty woman named Gloria. We started small. We cleared the patio. We got some donations for seeds and soil. We planted herbs in pots. Basil, mint, thyme. The smell of fresh earth was a balm to my soul. Then, another idea. One evening, Gloria was talking about her childhood in Louisiana. She was a wonderful storyteller. I listened, captivated. I realized everyone here had a story. A whole life lived, loves lost, joys experienced, tragedies survived. So I started the story circle. Every Thursday evening, we'd gather. I'd start. I'd tell them about Arthur, about our little bungalow, about the time we got caught in a rainstorm on Coney Island and laughed until we cried. I'd talk about Sarah as a little girl. It was painful at first, but with each telling, the pain lessened just a little. Then Walter would talk about building his first house. Rose would hum an old song, her eyes far away. Gloria would tell wild tales of Mardi Gras. Laughter began to echo in the beige halls. Real, genuine laughter. I also started writing. I bought a simple notebook and began to write down my recipes. Not just the ingredients, but the stories behind them. Arthur's favorite beef stew, Lily's first birthday cake, the cookies that comforted Ben. I wrote down my memories of Arthur. I was preserving my history, the history that Sarah had tried to sell off. One day, a young woman named Chloe, a legal aid volunteer, visited the home to offer free advice to residents. I almost didn't go, but Gloria dragged me. I sat down with Chloe and told her my story, haltingly, about selling my house, about the life insurance, about the verbal agreement for a forever home. Chloe listened intently. When she finished, she said, "Eleanor, what was done to you is morally reprehensible. But legally, you might have something. It sounds like a case of unjust enrichment. They were unjustly enriched by your money, and you relied on a promise to your detriment. You might also have a claim for a constructive trust or promissory estoppel. You gifted that money based on a promise that was broken." I didn't understand all the legal terms, but I understood the look in her eyes. It was a look of righteous anger on my behalf. She gave me her card. She said, "Think about it. You have rights." I tucked the card into my recipe notebook. I wasn't sure if I would ever use it, but just having it, just knowing that the world outside these beige walls might see the injustice, it made me feel a little stronger. My revenge was my resilience. It was my garden. It was my story circle. It was my growing sense of self, separate from being Nana or Mom. I was becoming just Eleanor. About 6 months after I'd been at Golden Sunset, I was out on the patio showing Walter how to prune the tomato plants when I saw a familiar car pull into the parking lot. It was Sarah. My heart stuttered. She got out of the car alone. She looked terrible. Her shoulders were slumped, her hair was lank, and there were deep shadows under her eyes. She looked a decade older. She walked slowly towards me, her eyes taking in the vibrant patio garden, the small group of residents laughing nearby. "Mom?" she said, her voice a broken whisper. "Sarah," I said, wiping the soil from my hands. I felt remarkably calm. She started to cry, quiet, helpless sobs. "He left me, Mom. Mark, he met someone else, someone younger, with no baggage." The irony was so sharp it could have drawn blood. "The house," she choked out. "The mortgage. We took out a second mortgage to buy into one of his business ventures. It failed. We can't afford the payments. We're gonna lose it, Mom. We're gonna lose the house." She looked at me, her eyes pleading, just like they did when she was a little girl who had skinned her knee. "I can't do it alone. The kids. Lily is so angry all the time. Ben won't talk to me. It's all falling apart. I was wrong, Mom. So wrong. Please, please come home. I need you. We need you." There was a time, not so long ago, when I would have given anything to hear those words. I would have packed my 2 suitcases in a heartbeat and gone back to being the roots holding up the tree. But as I looked at my daughter, I didn't feel a surge of triumphant vindication. I didn't feel anger. I felt a profound, bottomless pity, and I felt a strength I didn't know I possessed. I reached out and took her hand. It was cold. I said, "Sarah, I forgive you." She looked up, a flicker of hope in her tear-filled eyes. "I forgive you," I repeated. "Not for you, but for me." I cannot carry the weight of that anger and hurt anymore. It was poisoning my soul. So I lay it down. I forgive you. The hope in her eyes brightened. But, I said, and that single word made her flinch, I am not coming home. The hope shattered. That house hasn't been my home for a long time, I continued, looking around at my patio garden, at Gloria waving at me from the doorway. My home is here now. These people are my community. This is my life. I have a purpose here. I have friends. I have peace. Her face crumpled. But the kids, your grandchildren. I want to see my grandchildren, I said firmly. I love them more than life itself, but things will be different now. They can come here. You can bring them to visit me. Every other Sunday. We can sit in the garden, have some lemonade. We can talk. We can start to rebuild. But it will be on my turf, Sarah, in my home, on my terms. I was not being cruel. I was setting a boundary, the first one I had ever truly set with my daughter. I was protecting the fragile newfound peace I had fought so hard to build. Sarah stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time in years. She wasn't seeing Mom, the utility. She was seeing Eleanor, a woman who had been broken and had put herself back together, stronger in the broken places. She nodded slowly, a tear tracing a path through her makeup. She didn't argue. She just nodded. She turned and walked back to her car, looking smaller and more alone than I had ever seen her. I stood there for a long time, my hands buried in the rich, dark soil of my garden, the soil I had nurtured. I looked at the bright red tomatoes, the fragrant basil, the cheerful marigolds. I had created this. Me. The moral of my story isn't that family will betray you. It's that even when they do, your story isn't over. Being put away doesn't mean you were used up. Sometimes it's the brutal push you need to discover that you can bloom anywhere. Even in the beige, lonely soil of an old age home, you can plant a garden. You can find your roots again. And this time, they're holding you up. If you've listened this far, thank you. Thank you for hearing my heart. My story is just one of millions. Maybe you have a story like mine. Maybe you've felt the sting of betrayal. Maybe you felt lost and discarded, or maybe you're just starting to see the cracks in your own family. I'm telling you this now. From my heart to yours, you are not alone, and your value is not defined by what you can do for other people. Your value is in your soul, in your spirit, in your incredible capacity to survive and to love again. If my story has touched you, even a little, I have a small request. It's not for me. It's by subscribing, you are telling yourself that you want to hear more stories of the human heart, stories of struggle, of survival, of redemption. You are creating a community right here where we can remember that we are not alone in our pain or in our joy. It's a simple click, but it's a promise to your own heart that you will keep listening, keep feeling, keep connecting. I can't tell you how much it would mean to me to know that my story has helped build a place of comfort for others. And if you feel moved, please leave a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me what you felt. Let's talk to each other. Let's be a forest of strong trees for one another. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, please share this video. Share it with a friend, a sister, a mother. You never know whose heart you might be helping to heal. Thank you for your time, my dear. Truly, you have given an old woman a great gift today, the gift of being heard. Now, go and be the hero of your own story. I know you can be. God bless you.